First, let's look at the genesis of this. This all started off because the Indian Twitter commentariat decided to start comparing, the Prime Minister's visit to the Lakshadweep as some kind of a counter to Maldives, which it absolutely was not. The development of tourism in India is completely sui generis. It has nothing to do with the Maldives or in response to the Maldives, because that implies that we've kept the Lakshadweep poor as a sort of response to the Maldives. Now, when Twitterati are fighting, Maldivian Twitterati versus Indian Twitterati, the real question is, why did members of the Maldivian government decide to get involved in all of this? Because Indian Twitterati are not the Indian government. Government involvement is a completely different ballgame, and this is the first big question: why did they get involved? The third issue is, the appalling lack of knowledge that seems to be displayed by the Maldivian tourism industry. Because you see, what's been happening is that they've been tweeting that the average Western traveler spends $2,500, whereas the average Indian traveler only spends $750. That is true, but that entire $750 goes into the Maldivian economy because the price bracket at which Indian travelers go to the Maldives is entirely localized. Whereas all those Western companies, they make all their profits skimming off, and these are huge profit margins. There is no way a suite in the Maldives costs $15,000 a night. Out of that, maximum, say, $200-300 are going into the Maldivian economy, and the remaining $14,500 would be going into the pockets of these Western multinational corporations that run hotels out there. Second, the minister and both the ministers in question, despite being Maldivians, didn't even seem to know the difference between scuba diving and snorkeling and the gear required. So there's really appalling lack of knowledge of the tourism industry and of tourism itself and of diving itself. Now, it's like saying, how can somebody in the Maldives not know the difference between scuba diving and snorkeling? In India, it's still fine. But in the Maldives, really? And how are these people even ministers? The second question is, once they did get involved, what is the kind of language that government officials are using? Referring to India as cow dung mixed with laddus and God knows what not. Very uncivilized language for a deputy minister to be using. And the problem is that even though this deputy minister in question has deleted her tweets, no action has been taken against her. And just 1 hour back, she was tweeting some rabid anti-Indian Pakistani who's abusing India all the other time in his timeline. So the question is, what exactly is the government up to? Because if President Muizu isn't acting against such indiscipline, ultimately, the buck stops with him. Fourth, the question is, why has the Indian High Commission even taken this up? This should have been dealt with proactively by President Muizu himself. There's no point coming out and saying, I'm against all foreign militaries in Maldives, and we won't allow the Indians, but we won't allow the Chinese or the Pakistanis or everyone else either, when your ministers are actively targeting India. In response, mind you, not to Indian government officials, but in response to